Apple is making headlines by shifting iPhone production to India. On the surface, it seems smart, but it's a high-stakes gamble. Geopolitical tensions and trade wars are forcing Apple out of its comfort zone in China. For decades, Apple perfected manufacturing in China. Replicating that in India is a monumental challenge. It's not just about new factories. It's about training workers and overcoming infrastructure gaps. Any disruption could tarnish Apple's reputation and open doors for competitors. Apple isn't just moving factories, it's rewriting its playbook under pressure. The world is watching. Apple's move to India wasn't a bold new strategy. It was a reaction to global upheaval. For years, Apple thrived by designing in California and building in China, but that era is over. Trade wars, tariffs, and tech restrictions have made China a risky bet. Apple became dangerously dependent on one country for manufacturing. COVID-19 and China's strict lockdowns exposed this vulnerability, halting iPhone production and costing billions. Tim Cook, the architect of Apple's supply chain, had to act. India, with its vast workforce and government incentives, became the best alternative. But make no mistake, this is a move of necessity, not desire. Apple's success was built on a globalized world that no longer exists. Now, supply chains are weapons, and national security trumps profit. Apple must adapt to a fragmented, competitive world order. Its shift to India is a desperate attempt to survive in a new geopolitical reality. This isn't a masterstroke. It's a scramble to keep up with a world changing faster than anyone expected. Apple is learning to operate in a world where politics, not just profits, dictate its future. Despite the headlines, Apple's shift to India is still in its infancy. As of 2025, only about 14% of iPhones are made in India. The rest still come from China. Apple isn't abandoning China, it's hedging its bets. India's $10 billion in iPhone exports is impressive, but a drop in Apple's $200 billion iPhone revenue ocean. The real challenge isn't just volume, it's complexity. Premium models like the iPhone Pro are still mostly made in China, where skills and infrastructure are mature. Indian factories are ramping up, but quality and efficiency remain hurdles. Apple is moving cautiously, signaling intent to politicians without provoking China or risking its supply chain. The slow pace isn't failure, it's strategic caution. Apple is building a parallel supply chain, racing against time before China becomes untenable. The numbers show progress, but the journey is just beginning. Apple's leap of faith in India is still in its early stages. Building iPhones in India is a massive challenge. Precision manufacturing demands reliable power and logistics, areas where India still lags behind China. Power outages and underdeveloped transport networks cause costly delays. Labor issues add complexity: riots over wages, disputes over working conditions, and housing shortages for migrant workers. Apple's quality standards are tough to meet. Early reports showed only half of some components passed inspection. In China, Apple spent decades perfecting these processes. In India, it's trying to catch up in just a few years. India isn't a plug-and-play replacement for China. The ecosystem is still maturing, and building it requires massive investment and patience. Apple isn't just making products, it's building the entire support system from scratch. The risks are real, but so is the potential. Success will require more than just factories. It demands a transformation of India's manufacturing landscape. As Apple expands in India, China is quietly pushing back. Beijing is promoting domestic tech champions like Huawei, signaling it can thrive without Apple. Subtle government directives discourage iPhone use, eroding Apple's market share. Most iPhone components are still made in China. Beijing could disrupt Apple's supply chain with new controls at any time. China's strategy: make it hard for Apple to leave, while building up its own tech industry. Apple can't just walk away. China holds the cards on key components. The threat isn't open conflict, it's a constant, quiet pressure. Apple's India gamble comes with real risks back in its most critical market. Apple's arrival in India is a stress test for the country's entire system. The potential is huge: jobs, investment, and a shot at global tech leadership. But India's infrastructure, bureaucracy, and social systems are under immense strain. Delays in permits, land, or customs could disrupt Apple's tight schedules. Rapid industrial growth risks environmental and social fallout, housing shortages, resource strain, and labor unrest. India's ability to adapt will determine if this is a transformative moment or a failed experiment. If the system bends without breaking, India could become a global powerhouse. But if cracks appear, both Apple and India could face reputational and operational setbacks. Apple is now a geopolitical pawn, caught between the US, China, and India. Washington wants Apple to reduce dependence on China, seeing India as a strategic win. Beijing views Apple's shift as a threat, using its market power to slow the transition and promote local tech. New Delhi sees Apple as a symbol of national progress, rolling out incentives and red carpet treatment. Tim Cook must balance these competing pressures, satisfying US demands, maintaining access to China, and relying on India's promises. Every move is scrutinized through three political lenses. Apple's decisions are no longer just business, they're geopolitical calculations. A misstep could anger a superpower and have global consequences. The stakes are higher than ever. Apple's future depends on navigating this political triangle with extreme care. The world's most valuable company is now at the center of a global power struggle. Is Tim Cook a visionary, or is he risking Apple's future? Some say he's wisely diversifying Apple's supply chain, steering through global storms with caution. Others argue he was too slow, letting Apple become over-reliant on China and now scrambling to catch up. The India pivot is seen by critics as a desperate, risky move, betting on an unproven system. If Cook succeeds, he'll be hailed as a master strategist. If he fails, he could damage Apple's brand and operational excellence. The final verdict on his leadership will depend on the outcome of this monumental bet. Apple's future and Cook's legacy hang in the balance. Apple's India gamble is a turning point for global tech. If it works, it rewrites the playbook, proving high-tech supply chains can thrive outside China. Success would boost India's status and inspire other companies to follow. But failure would reinforce China's dominance and deter others from leaving. The stakes are massive. Apple's reputation, US supply chain ambitions, India's economic dreams, and China's global standing. This is a real-time test of the global economic order. The era of easy globalization is over. Geopolitics now shapes every move. Apple is caught between the past and an uncertain future. Whether this is a stroke of genius or a costly mistake, the outcome will reshape the tech world. The world is watching to see where the pieces will land.